Hello everyone and welcome to the brand new series where I will be building Icon in none other than Minecraft. Yes, and if this series does get loads of support, then you never know, I might build the whole of Blackpool Pleasure Beach in Minecraft. So yeah, please consider liking and subscribing if you want to see that. So as you can see, I'm using a shovel to mark out where the track is eventually going to go. And I came up with this technique when I was building some other roller coasters, which I haven't actually uploaded, but you know. So I find it a lot easier than building the track straight away, especially with a recreation, because it means you're freer to make curves and things. You just drag it like in Planet Coaster when you're placing the path and things like that. I find it very similar to that rather than placing block by block. You can just sort of build the track over the top of this path which I'm building now. So yeah, I find that a lot easier. So that's what I've done. That's why I've done that. Because all I need to do is just change the elevation of the track later on. And as you can see now, I'm building the station. Frequently through the video you might notice a few pauses. That will be because I'm looking at pictures and reference images and things like that, which for this I used about 6 different pictures and a POV, because I actually, at the time of recording, I had been on Icon yesterday, and I'd somehow forgotten loads about it, so you know, just to remind myself and refresh my memory, I used some floor plans and off-ride pictures and things like that to make it as accurate as possible. So, what have we done so far? I've started the launch track and the top hat, which I actually think the top hat came out quite well, actually. I wasn't expecting that, because it's not like straight. It's not like straight onto the launch. It goes off to the left a tiny bit, which I assume that will be because of the terrain being a bit off or something like that when they were designing it, or maybe it was because of the big one or something like that. But that's what I did. I recreated that as realistically as possible. And actually, the bit I've just done, which is I don't actually know what that element's called, but sort of the angled loop. That was one of the elements that I was the most proud of after this recreation, because I think it's quite accurate. And later on you'll see I actually end up changing a lot about that element, because when you feed all the track through, you notice that it's not quite profiled right, so you have to redo loads of stuff. So what I'm doing now is I'm getting rid of some of this ground, because obviously I need to make sure that the terrain is the right level, and in this case it actually goes a little bit into the ground, so that's what I've done there, cleared out a bit of ground so that the track can go through. And you might be asking, how am I going to make it look like the roller coaster is banking, because obviously in Minecraft you can't do that. So the answer to that is I'm going to use a little thing called a barrier block, which if you play Minecraft, if you're a frequent Minecraft user, you will know exactly what that is. It's basically a completely invisible block that you can use to put anything on, essentially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the barrier blocks to the side of the track so that it looks like the track is sort of like going around you, like to imagine that you're tilting. There's obviously very limited things you can do when building a roller coaster in Minecraft, because obviously roller coasters do loads of different things that you can't do in Minecraft, so that's the best I can do with this game. You may be asking me, why are you building it in Minecraft? Surely you would build it in Planet Coaster 2. Well, I thought it would be more of a nice challenge to build it in Minecraft, because yeah, because you get unlimited space in Minecraft, don't you? Whereas in Planet Coaster 2, well, you'll have a lot of space, but not as much space. So when I go on to build the rest of Blackpool Pleasure Beach, I want to have as much space as possible to work around and things like that, so that I can recreate it as accurately as possible. So I'm now on to the second half of the layout now, where I'm building the second launch and the Immelman. The Immelman was slightly difficult to make, to be honest, because as you can see, it's not great. It didn't come out great, and that's a shame because the Immelman is actually one of my favourite elements on the ride, and I would really like to get that right. But unfortunately, it's really difficult to make in Minecraft. And if any of you guys want to try and make Icon in Minecraft for yourselves, rather than watch me recreate it really badly, then go ahead and give it a try. So I think that after this episode's basically going to be focusing on the layout and the track and making sure that it all works properly. The next episode, I'll be completely building the sections of the rides that Icon goes around, such as Steeplechase, the big one, the Big Dipper, a tiny bit of Big Dipper, and also the paths that go around it. That's probably what I'll be doing next episode. And then the third and final episode, I'll be adding all of the finishing touches. So I'll be building the station, building the queue lines, both of them, theming everything. Well, I say theming, but it's not really themed, is it? Stylize it. So I'll be stylizing everything, making sure that it looks accurate to the real thing, so that we have a finished product. So that's what I'll be doing in the next couple of episodes. But in this episode, the next hardest thing that I'll be doing is actually building the rails and the tracks itself, and I found that really difficult because, as you can see, the actual Top Hat and the Immelman are both way too steep for rails to go up in Minecraft. So you'll see in a little while how I managed to get that to work, and it took a lot of attempts. So yeah. So I'm now just adding a few different things, finishing off the layout, and adding all of the track afterwards. And something I did for the launch itself, because as you know on Icon, it goes out the station and it stops before it launches. It pauses for a while. So in Minecraft, I added some redstone. If you're a frequent Minecraft user, you will know what redstone is. Essentially, it's kind of like power in Minecraft. Like, imagine electricity. It's kind of like that. So what I did was I made it so that it goes out of the station, then it stops, and then after a while, the redstone powers it, and then launches it. So that's what I did for the final thing, which you'll see afterwards. And I'm just building the brake run now, as you can see. And this bit took me a few attempts to get right, because the final few turns, I think with everything, to be honest, are the hardest, because you've got to make sure everything lines up properly and you have to redo different things. So now we are going on with the rest of the track. So as you can see, I'm building a little hole under here just so I can get some room so I can build some more. And I'm essentially making it so that the minecart goes over a detector rail as you leave the station, which is essentially like a button for a minecart. And the minecart then goes onto some deactivated power rails, so it stops. Then the redstone goes, after a while, because of going over the detector rail, it goes through loads of different repeaters, and then after a while it goes into the actual deactivated powered rails, which then powers it so that you launch off. So that's what I've done for that. As you can see, I need to shut up and actually stop waffling. But as you can see now, I have started the first attempt of this, and I've already finished it. So I'm just going to quickly summarize what I've done. So I essentially wanted it to go onto a sticky piston with a slime block so that it would bounce itself up, and then it would reach another slime block and then bounce it forwards onto the track. And that was really difficult, so I didn't do that. I went on to take 2, which I used barrier blocks, as you can see now, and basically tried to put rails to go up thing, and that didn't really work out. So I went to my final option, and that, you ask, was command blocks. So As you can see, I'm digging out a little pit underground, so that I have loads of different room. That doesn't make sense, does it? Loads of different room. Loads of room so that I can place as many different command blocks as I need. And that will essentially make it so that when the player in the minecart goes over the detector rail, it teleports them block by block up the top hat and onto the top, where they will then reach a minecart which had just been summoned using one of the command blocks. And unfortunately, the downside of this means they have to manually click into the minecart and move forwards again, which is kind of sad. But that's the best thing I could really do to make it look as accurate as possible. So you can see now that I'm getting the coordinates of all the blocks I need and just putting them into the command blocks, so that I can make sure that they teleport up. This took a very long time, but I think after all of this it was definitely worth it, and it turns out I actually had a few too many command blocks, so I just deleted some of those. And so I'm testing it and it works, as you can see there, so that's pretty cool. I'm glad with that. And now the easiest thing is what's left, which is making it go back down again. So that's what I'm doing now, making it go back down. So I'm essentially just placing some different commands into these command blocks now, because turns out I've did a few different things wrong, and I'm just making sure it all works properly. I think after this one last command, it's all done. So I'm just making a little pit there so that the minecart goes off into that pit, because obviously you'll get ejected from the minecart. So that's what I did there. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think this was a really effective way of making it work. I'm sure that pistons and slime blocks would be a lot better, in terms of not having to click the minecart manually every time. But it looked really bad, and I didn't want it to look like that, so I just did it like this. So, as you can see now, I'm simply placing a bunch of rails down on top of the different elements. Well, not on top, underneath, because you can see I've put some barrier blocks there. Giving it a little test over there. So I'm essentially making it so that when it's like an overbank or something like that, then it's sort of like the track goes to the side. No, the rails go to the side of the wool blocks, which are the track, so that it feels like the track's sort of bending to the side, which makes it like the best way I can possibly make it bank, as you know. So I'm just adding some track here, and funnily enough, the bit where it goes under steeplechase and does that sort of switchback, almost like Taran does, is actually probably one of my favourite elements on the ride. I just absolutely love that, where it just whips you side to side. So I made sure to get that right. And as you can see, I'm doing the same thing for this Immelman here, where I'm doing it block by block. And this is a little bit difficult because obviously on the Immelman, you're turning as you're going up. So I've had to make it so that you manually turn yourself as you're going up the Immelman, if that makes sense. Which obviously you can't rotate a player using command blocks. I wish you could. Well, actually, you might be able to. I don't know. If you can, tell me in the comments. Scream at me to change it. But yeah, so as far as I know, you can't do that, so that's a shame. So the player will have to manually rotate themselves. But I think it works quite well. This was a lot more difficult than the top hat earlier, just because it also shifts a lot more. So I've had to make it so that the player sort of moves sideways as they go up a bit, which is also a lot different to the other one. So you can see there, putting in the final commands like the minecart summoning command, so that it summons it, so that you can just click on the minecart and then go away. So there you can see I'm just giving it a little test there, and then I'm going on and adding the final bits of track to the Immelman before I can finish the second half. Now I'm going to leave you guys with the rest of the time lapse and the POV.